morning, everybody. Ooh, that's loud. All right. So, good morning, everybody. I'm Edwin Reed Sanchez. I represent SayCel and also NYU. I work as a researcher at the Risk Econ Lab. I also am an adjunct professor at the ITP, Interactive Telecommunications Program, which is a weird program if you don't know it. It's a technology program at an art school. You pretty much just get to play with the newest technology. I'm part of NYU Wireless and the Open Networks group there as well. I teach a class called Towers of Power, which is about learning GSM. Originally it was GSM cellular infrastructure, but it's since I started teaching it, I've also expanded to just basically any infrastructure for connectivity, how to build your own networks using open source hardware and software. This class was pretty much just part of my obsession with connecting the disconnected. And I have a company called SayCel, and what we do is we bring communications where it's needed most. We're technology agnostic, so it's about getting the work done. Whether it's open source cellular technology, Wi-Fi technology, or fiber connectivity, it doesn't really matter. It's about how you get people connected in difficult networking environments. So it all really got started because I used to live in Nicaragua for about 7 years. I was running a multimedia center on the Caribbean Coast of Nicaragua. If you don't know much about the area, it's Afro-descendant and a lot of indigenous communities. Just recently, in the last year, there's been a road to get to the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua, and it's not an island. So, I mean, it's incredible that it's taken over 100 years to get a road there. And between the different communities, there's actually no roads that connect them, so all the travel is done by boat. And because of this, there's been really a lack of infrastructure in the area. We had a recording studio, and we did projects where we would connect youth with older musicians, bring them to our studio, teach the youth how to use computers, how to do some basic recording skills, video skills, and work with the older musicians to record their traditional music. We would get funding from different organizations, but a big part of our budget was going to cellular phone calls. Over there, it was about 50 cents a minute for a cellular call. And this is like a really ridiculous price. And that picture right there is actually from the regulator in Nicaragua. I love how they have that old phone. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. But this price is regulated by the regulator. So what they're saying, or what the telcos say, is that because these areas are very rural, it costs more money to install in these areas, and therefore they need to charge more money in order to be able to justify the investment that they put in these areas. The other problem was that not every area was connected. So a lot of these communities, you still have to rely on shortwave radio to really talk to people in these communities. So I got obsessed with this. I thought it was ridiculous. A big part of our budget is going into cellular phone calls. We got to buy minutes for ourselves, minutes for whoever is we're working with. So and when I went to grad school at NYU at ITP, I learned that I could build my own cellular network, and I just got totally obsessed, and I installed a cell network on one of the communities on the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua. I did it as my thesis. This turned into a company. I won an award as a social venture, and we installed an open source community cellular network, worked with the local community government. So now the government was able to provide not only local communications, but also for the first time have local 911. So we've installed phones in the local clinic as well as the police station. And this was the first time that locals had the ability to call someone for emergency services. Prior to that, if you were calling 911, you were actually calling the Capitol, and then it was like some automated message that would never go back to the community you were actually living in. For this project, we won an award from UNICEF, the UNICEF Innovation Fund, and through that, we were able to really solidify the network in this community of Pearl Lagoon, and we did a lot of studies to see what the effect was of what we were doing. So this right here was our baseline study before the introduction of our services. So more or less, people were paying about $17 a month, and a maximum of like $72 a month for cellular services. After we did our installations, people who were using the PearlCell service or the local service were paying about $9 a month, so about a 42% savings what they were getting on average because they were using our network, which is pretty incredible when you think about that people in these communities, if they have a job, it is most likely they're making between $200 and $300 a month. So these kind of savings really make a difference in these smaller communities. Currently, we got a grant from Telecom Infra, and what Telecom Infra is doing is that they're creating open source hardware and software to do not only 2G cellular phone call connectivity, but also 4G, and they're giving us some equipment to expand our network in Nicaragua. So I didn't stop there. Internet is also very important in Nicaragua, 27% penetration rate, much worse where we are. Those are horrible numbers. And yet, there's a submarine fiber optic cable that reaches Bluefield. So if you see right there where the arrow is, that's where our main location is. And that's the submarine cable, but this is the actual landing station. So this is the area, this is where the fastest internet in Nicaragua is these little containers that I didn't know what they were until I started doing research. And I once again got obsessed. I have a house out there, couldn't get a connection to my house, so I decided to build my own fiber connection. So what we did is we partnered with the local cable TV provider. They use fiber, but they have a lot of dark fiber that they're not using. So we purchased a lot of dark fiber from them, and it allowed us to have a quick connection to the rest of the town. And where is it? Oh, there's my house. So I was able to connect my house. I say, it's always best when you can solve your own problems, right? So that's the best business model is if you can solve what your problem is, because probably someone else has the same problem. So I connected my house. This is us working with the cable TV providers, and these are the kind of regions that we are connecting. So we use their fiber backhaul, their fiber, dark fiber, and then we run the cables into the house. I think this kind of model could be used in some ways in the United States. There is a lot of dark fiber here. I think there needs to be a greater push for municipal dark fiber and incentives created for local ISPs or smaller ISPs or alternative ISPs to be able to provide these services, but using what's already existing, because it's there. Like, why aren't we using it? Why is there dark fiber when people need connectivity? The other project that I just did was Olakasasi-Net. This is in the suburbs of Kenya. This area is a suburb, and I really mean suburban, still dirt roads. There's actually a lot of universities in this area, but a lot of the students, their parents sacrifice a lot for their children to be able to go to school in this area of Kenya. And you scan the Wi-Fi, and you don't see any SSIDs while you're walking through this. And this is like essentially a college town, and there's nobody who has their Wi-Fi connected, which is kind of crazy to think. So I have some friends out there, and we installed a network. We taught them how to install a network and installed it. And literally within 20 minutes, we had 30 people online. Sweet. And I don't know what's going on, if people are just like actively looking for like a Wi-Fi connection, but I was like, oh geez, what's going on? And so my friends, what we're doing is not just building access to the internet, but we're also building a local area network that has services. So this is one of the applications that we're testing. This is Lightlist. It's similar to Craigslist, and it's very flexible. And what we're doing is that this Lightlist is going to be able to work whether there is internet or there isn't internet. Right. We're also working on another program called a web phone, and we're working to make it also available offline. And the idea here is that when the internet is disconnected, you want people to be able to still communicate, and you want them to use these tools before the internet is disconnected. Because otherwise, you're going to ask somebody to download an app when there's no internet, it's not going to work. So we're testing this out over there, and this is really recent. We did this last month in September. We installed this network. And then finally, the last network I'm working on is a National Science Foundation awarded network in Black Rock Forest. This is really more for environmental research, but we like the challenge of trying to deal with trees. The more challenging, the better, right? This is more or less the network that we're gonna build. And one of the interesting things that we're doing with this is that we're gonna be connecting IoT sensors into the network for environmental research, using a lot of the same technologies that I will talk about later on, which is the P and K, but essentially using Wi-Fi access points and Raspberry Pis as places to store information and also do store and forward. When there is no connectivity, it stores it. When there is connectivity, it forwards it onto a central server. My passion really is in education, so I was also part of the group that went to Puerto Rico. I'm really interested in getting people to learn this technology. I can't do this all by myself. So 6 things that I think are super important. Recognize market failures in connectivity. There's areas that are disconnected. ISPs traditionally have not invested in these areas despite getting incentives. Locals are going to be the best first responders during an emergency. If they're trained, they're going to be the people who are going to reconnect the networks. Incentivize local community networks, like what we have here from Detroit or at the Point or anywhere else, right? They will be our first responders. Create a level playing field for all ISPs. Competition drives value. When we come in, we install a cell network. It allows people to have connectivity at a lower price. Idea eventually, all prices start to come down. Invest in skills development, so networking, prototyping, computer programming. We need these local skills to be able to build these networks and improve access to backhaul. How can we get access to this dark fiber that exists? And that's one of the greatest barriers of entry for anybody who's trying to have an ISP is access to that backhaul. So this is me. Please email me, talk to me afterwards. Thank you.